Confronting the growing threat from armed groups in northwest Africa, France and 5 countries in the Sahel region are planning to deploy more troops. But will the new regional force work, and is a bigger military presence in Mali the answer to the threat from Al-Qaeda and others? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Sika. He's been president of France for just 2 months and already has made his second visit to Mali, where French troops and UN peacekeepers are fighting armed groups. Emmanuel Macron says the strategy isn't working and wants an African force to help confront what he calls Islamic terrorism. He's calling for countries in the Sahel region of northwest Africa to contribute 5,000 soldiers. Mali hosted leaders from Burkina Faso, Chad, Mauritania and Niger, who are promising troops to confront armed groups at home. They'll be tasked with wiping out fighters Macron describes as terrorists, thugs and murderers. But more money is needed to train and equip the soldiers in hostile territory. Mohamed Val reports from the capital, Bamako.
The Sahel region is sometimes known as the lawless land. It's vast, extremely dry and sparsely populated. But the apparent emptiness is an illusion. The region is teeming with armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and traffickers in people, illegal drugs and other contraband. They rule by fear, and the victims are local people who are killed or displaced. This Al-Qaeda video shows people having testimony before being executed.
Unknown men broke into my husband's home in Timbuktu and shot him dead in the presence of our children. They accused him of having links with foreigners, but he never done any of that. Now I'm left to look after 5 children alone.
The absence of a central government which can provide security is taking a heavy toll. Foreign armies have been trying to fill the security void for the past 4 years, which was when the MINUSMA force was created. The multinational integrated stabilization mission in Mali is stationed at bases like this one. It hosts troops from up to 40 nations as part of the UN force. But the limitations of what MINUSMA could achieve became evident from its inability to stop Al-Qaeda attacks or even defend its own troops. France has thousands of troops deployed in the region. Soldiers from Operation Barkhane patrol the Sahel from Chad to Niger and on to northern Mali. Now, a force of up to 5,000 soldiers from the Sahel nations of Mali, Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mauritania has been created. The aim of the African armies is to be at the forefront of the war on armed groups. France supports the initiative, which was given approval last month by the UN Security Council. But aside from the European Union pledging around $50 million, the new force remains largely underfunded. Critics believe a different approach is needed in Mali and the Sahel.
Excluding the idea of peaceful dialogue makes the situation more complicated. The military solution should not be the only solution available. It caused revolution among many people. The idea that we should just kill and kill and kill, and that we wage war on people that we can't see or locate or identify, put African nations in a weak position.
Peace talks have been held with nationalist rebels, though none of the peace agreements have been implemented. As to how to deal with Al-Qaeda, France and the Sahel nations are clearly still betting on the military solution. Mohamed Val, Al Jazeera, Bamako.
Now, some are questioning whether the new Sahel force is part of a French exit plan for what was meant to be a short operation in northern Mali, 4 years after French troops intervened to prevent an alliance of rebel groups toppling Mali's government. Some troops remain part of the costly mission for France. Let's take a look at how that happened. Malian troops mutinied and overthrew the government in March 2012 because of its handling of a Tuareg rebellion. A month later, Tuareg separatist fighters took advantage of the security vacuum and seized several towns in the north. The separatists declared a breakaway state called Azawad, effectively splitting Mali in two. Between June and July the same year, fighters linked to Al-Qaeda hijacked the Tuareg movement and the rebel alliance advanced towards Bamako, the capital of Mali. French troops intervened in January 2013 to prevent the government falling. Some rebel groups refused to sign a peace deal with the government and continue to operate in the north. The groups linked to al-Qaeda say they attacked hotels used by Western tourists, including the killing of 20 people in November 2015. All right, let's talk more about this now with our guests. Joining us from Paris, we have Marie-Roger Biloa, editor of Africa International and founder of Club Millennium, a think tank specializing on development in Africa. In Dakar via Skype, Adama Gaye, author of Tomorrow, the New Africa, and former director of information for Economic Community of West African States, known as ECOWAS. But first, we're going to talk to Tiabile Drame. He is the former Malian foreign minister, and he joins us on the phone from Bamako. Thanks very much for being with us. I want to ask you, first of all, what you make of President Macron's trip and his proposal for this Sahel 5 force.
It is a decision made by the leaders of our Sahelian countries. They came to the conclusion that they should join their forces in order to combat the terrorism in our common borders. I think they came to this conclusion a few months ago. Obviously, the support, strong support from France is an instrumental step. And everybody hopes in this country that this five-nation joint operation will achieve some results, because we know the situation has deteriorated seriously in the central Mali and in our borders with Burkina Faso and Niger. It's important to bring an appropriate response to the degradation of the situation in the Sahel, in our common borders. The blessing brought by the Security Council a few days ago is a good step, but it's not enough, unfortunately, because the Security Council did not say how to gather money, how to mobilize, how to do fundraising, how to raise money in order to support the operation. The operation is important. If you live in this country, if you live in central Mali, you will quickly realize that security, safety of people, and stability are key issues, are even issue of life or death. This is why we think that the international community should bring its support to that. And it should not be left to France. It should not be left to European Union to bring the support for this.
All right.
I think Muslim community.
I want to ask you as well, because this force is already facing some challenges before it even becomes operational. Questions over how it's going to be financed, the manpower, the equipment, and so on. What's your view on that?
Obviously, it is a project. Till now, it is a project. And it is a project which receives great support from today, from France, from the regional countries gathered in Bamako. Now, the countries, the operation, the G5 countries need financial support. Without financial support, I don't see how it would be possible to get equipment. In terms of human resources, I think each of these countries has normally enough military possibilities to be deployed in the borders. It's not, from what I understand, it's not an operation, it's not an issue to deploy Burkina or Chad soldiers in Mali. It's a question of, for each country, to protect seriously its borders in coordination with the others. Exchange of information, of intelligence information, and to be in touch in order to combat the terrorist groups which are jeopardizing the stability of the region.
You said earlier that this is a good first step, but more needs to be done. What more do you think needs to be done?
the next step should be fundraising, appropriate fundraising to raise enough financial resources. Which is why I think it should not be left to France and the European Union. The organization of Islamic conference should play fully its role. And individually, the countries in the Gulf, in the Arab Gulf, particularly Qatar and other neighboring countries, should bring their contribution to the success of this joint
And when you're talking about more financial contributions, are you talking about non-military, non-security funding?
I think the 5 nations have enough human resources, military resources to address the situation, but they lack seriously financial resources. And the issue is, if the Security Council had bring its financial support, that probably would have been enough. But we know that we have a political blessing, a diplomatic blessing from the Security Council with no financial support. This is why France, European Union have decided to support it. But one can guess that would not be enough. It would not be enough. We need more money to start. We need the involvement of all the regional powers throughout the world to make the success of the operation.
Appreciate you talking to us, Tiabile Drame, former Malian foreign minister, joining us there from the capital, Bamako. Thanks for being with us. Well, let's turn then to Marie-Roger Biloa, get into some of these issues that we just talked about there with the former foreign minister and a few other things, we hope. I want to ask you, first of all, just broadly speaking, what do you make of this new plan for further military operations, and the fact that President Emmanuel Macron is making his second trip to Mali in less than a month? This would send a message, wouldn't it, that France is taking this very seriously?
Well, let's be clear about what France is taking seriously, not Mali. They are taking seriously the terrorist threat and their own security, the security of Europe, as Macron will be convincing the other European. First time Macron came a couple of weeks ago, he didn't even bother going to Bamako. They went straight to the French troops in Gao, and the Malian president had to join him there, which caused a lot of controversy. So what we are seeing here is not that they are really concerned about terrorism as a whole, as a global threat, is because they would invite a country like Nigeria, where you have Boko Haram still causing a lot of trouble. Nigeria is not in the game, as you see. It's among countries around Mali. And why Mali? Why don't they ask themselves why Mali is sort of a target, the heart of the whole turmoil? Just because they have an internal situation, they have an internal problems with pro-independence rebels, the Azawad, Tuareg, and other groupings, that there is a peace agreement which is not being implemented because part of them did not really sign it, and a lot of things should have been done by now, 2 years after the peace agreement, and nothing has happened. And so Mali is a very fragile place where terror can prosper. So they should take it from the bottom and not just say, well, we will send troops and troops and troops. You know, we already have the Barkhane there, we have the MINUSMA, and we have the Malian government, and they will add some more troops with national, so from other countries, and there will be problems of coordination. How do you coordinate, make those troops work together and be efficient, all of these things. But to me, at the heart, at the bottom of it, there is an internal political problem. And I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear much to address that.
Adama Gaye, what's your take on this?
Thank you. I believe that we are facing a shift in how the international community is looking at and handling African challenges, security challenges. Years ago, in the midst of the war on terror, when Africa became again a fashionable place in the global geopolitical game, you would have seen more interest, more appetite in intervening in such a situation. But in the case of Mali and what is happening within the G5 countries, the resolution that was put forward by France within the UN Security Council at the UN didn't even get a mandate from the United Nations. And the US government was almost reluctant to provide any kind of support. They actually want to reduce the financial muscle of the United Nations when it comes to peacekeeping operations. So there is really a lack of appetite. And what we see is somehow a form of Africanization of peacekeeping operation. They are asking Africans to provide boots on the ground, 5,000 soldiers. And what I see as a big risk is that now there is a kind of transfer to these problems to the former colonial power. That's France taking it over and controlling its former colonies. And I think that France, with its own internal economic and security challenges, with its budgetary difficulties, is not able to address them. So what I see is truly, even though there could be something good to see Africans at the end of the day being asked to address their own problems by providing soldiers and raising themselves money, we don't really see such things happening. You don't hear about the African Union. You have not heard ECOWAS within the game. You see really Francophone countries under France the same way in the security. In this case, you have the same thing in the monetary level and political level. These countries are controlled somehow by France, and what the international community is doing, which is charged under the UN Charter, under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter and Article 2 of the UN Charter, to fix stability and security challenges in the world. You see the UN withdrawing from it, probably because Mr. Trump doesn't want any form of financial or military intervention of the UN and of the United States behind. Last but not the least, Mr. Drame, my good friend, mentioned that, yes, you need to go beyond France and bring other players. Yes, I expected places like somehow, if we have financial problems, to see a country like Saudi Arabia that is calling African countries like Senegal to help it out, face Qatar, to provide financial muscle, but never those such countries will come and support African countries when they have problems. I think we are now witnessing a transformation in the way these challenges are being addressed, but do we have the technicality, expertise? Do we have the capacity militarily to address these problems? If you see, for instance, in northern Nigeria, when Boko Haram has been challenging this country of almost 200 million people, with almost $100 million put on the table by Nigeria, the problem still has not been addressed. And now, in the case of Mali, they can't even raise beyond the 50 million euros provided by the European Union.
All right.
And today, when Mr. Macron was there, he only could announce 8 million euros. So I think it's a serious, serious problem, and it needs to be addressed by African leaders. And to go to the root cause of the problem somehow, part of those problems are bad governance, the inability of leaders in the region to show leadership and address the challenges of democracy, good governance, and truly the causes that are destabilize the region.
Marie-Roger Biloa, if, as you were saying earlier, this is all about France looking out mainly for its own interests here, then what needs to be done, in your view, to address the fundamental problems in Mali that are contributing to this instability? Because, as we were saying earlier, this is the latest of a number of military operations that are currently going on there.
I think it's very crucial to disparage the, let's say, the ambiguity that France shows toward the rebels. You know, in Mali, many people think that they are sort of condoning them, not supporting them, not really putting enough pressure on them to realize that there is a central government, that they are not autonomous, that they should submit themselves to the government like other citizens and share their part, to take their part in the peace process and not be sort of, you know, a power which doesn't want to comply to the rules. So this is a very important point. What do France think or feel or do to put back this rebellion on track? So that's one of the first problems. And if you do that, how do they help Malians altogether implement the peace agreements? This is very important. If you have peace in Mali, if you have national unity really enforced and reinforced, it would not be such a porous country to terror. That is one point. The second point is, if you say, well, the French should not intervene anymore, Africans should do that. I think we should not be too ideological on that. I think many Africans were happy that when the jihadists threatened to take over the Mali as a country, that France came in. And, you know, France has been investing a lot of power, money, and whatever, and you know, French blood being, French troops being killed. Now we have about 20. And what was happening here is that Emmanuel Macron, he doesn't want any French people to be killed in Mali again. That's the main point. So he's telling the Africans, you should take over. Of course, you can see, well, the Africans themselves decided to take over their own security. Well, it sounds good. But what is happening here is that Emmanuel Macron is telling him, please do it by yourself. We will support you. We will give as much money as we can. But, and we won't withdraw our troops right now. We will wait until you are in a position to take over. But they want to withdraw. They want to ease the burden on them and share it with other Europeans and basically with Africans. That's what is happening here.
I want to get back to Adama then, and probably what's going to be the last word on this. You mentioned earlier that it's incumbent on the African leaders to show more leadership. Is it also incumbent on people in Mali themselves to unite as well as a country and as a people?
Yes, of course. Malian people must live up to the challenge their country is going through. It's a life-threatening challenge because, unfortunately, France's intervention is not done for the sake of just helping the Malians. It's done because France has its own security interests. It doesn't want a spillover effect of the security threat within France, but also it wants to secure its economic advantages. And some people even tend to believe that France is somehow facilitating the break up of Mali in order to control the northern part. Somehow France's position is ambivalent. It's supporting somehow the otherward movement in order to control that area where there are, some have said, a lot of natural resources. But the Malian people, they need to be able to put their act together. If they don't do that, if overall African people, they don't address their own problem by becoming more serious about democracy, about good governance, about true leadership, about really becoming patriotic, I don't think that this continent will address the challenges. Look what's happening quickly. Mr. Macron is inviting Mr. Trump.
That is going to have to be the last word. We've got to leave it there. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for being with us, Marie-Roger Biloa and Adama Gaye. Thanks very much for being on Inside Story. And thank you again for watching. Remember, you can see the program anytime visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, you can go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/ AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there is @AJ Inside Story. For me, Hazem Sika, and the whole team here, bye for now.